Well, good evening, everyone. I'm going to take my mask off as the speaker up here. I think I'm far enough away from everyone, and I'm fully vaccinated. So if you're speaking, feel free to take your mask off, but then when I leave, I'll put it back on again. My name is Carol Mikulski, and I am the president of the Library Board of Managers. So I would like to call to order the 141st annual meeting of the Wallingford Public Library Association. The minutes from last year's meeting, the treasurer's report, the annual report, and proposed changes to our bylaws were sent via email to members who registered for the meeting. Those of you on Zoom, hello. Copies are available in the back of the room if you didn't get one. So our first order of business is I would like a motion to approve the 2020 annual meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve these minutes? Bill, thank you. Is there a second? Second, Cliff. Any discussion on them? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And they're approved. Treasurer's report. I'd like Beth Brooks to come up as our treasurer to give that report.
Hello, everybody. Hi. I'm Beth Brooks, the treasurer, and I'll give you the balances in our accounts as of June 30th, 2020. In the Library Development Fund, and the Vanguard Balanced Index Fund is $1,489,109. In the Library Development Fund checking account, we had $162,304 for a total in the Library Development Funds as of June 30, 2020, $1,651,413. We have the Helen and Roy Stewart Fund, which was established in April 1986 with a bequest from the late Helen Stewart. The Association Stewart Fund is invested in the Vanguard Balanced Index Fund with a balance of $214,154 as of June 30th, 2021. The named and restricted funds consist of contributions and bequests made to the library. These funds were invested as follows. In the Vanguard Balanced Index Fund with $488,202. The Vanguard Long-Term Investment Grade Fund, $22,022. The total in named and restricted funds as of June 30th, 2021 was $510,224. Income from these funds is used to supplement the library's operating budget. Information about the library's operating income and expenses for the fiscal year 2020-2021 is detailed in the annual report, which is on the table. May I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Second, did you get that?
I saw Dr. Singer, the motion. Second.
Okay, and can I have a vote?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, well, that's it.
Okay, next I would like the governance committee report and elections. And I'm going to introduce Jared Liu, chair of the governance committee. Jared.
Thanks, Carol. Good evening, everyone. All right, so we have nominations for 3-year terms of Board of Managers expiring in October 2024. They would be Christy Doerr, Jared Liu, Carol Mikulski, Gumera Raza, Willie Stahura, and Suzanne Wright. Motion.
May we have a motion to cast one ballot for the slate of nominees as presented by our governance committee? Jamie, second. Cliff, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thanks. Governance Committee is pleased to present the following slate of officers for a 1-year term expiring October 2022. President Carol Mikulski, First Vice President Cliff Overstrom, Second Vice President Lee Russell, Secretary Art Elliott, and Treasurer Christy Doer.
May we have a motion to cast one ballot for the slate of officers as presented by our governance committee? Art, second. Julie, any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Jared?
And I present the following nominees for the Governance Committee from the association: Mary Reed, Dara Solan, and Lisa Sousa.
We have heard the report of the governance committee. May we have a motion to cast one ballot for the governance committee nominees for a one-year term expiring in October 2022. Motion, Jamie, the second. Bill, any discussion? Can I have a vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And then, sorry, I heard something, just feedback. The board recommends the following changes to the bylaws. I think you were able to pick up the printout on the way in, and you can just see where the edits were. But Article 1, Section 2, updated to reflect the current mission. Article 3, Section 5E, specified that the board not only hires, but also evaluates the library director. Article 3, Section 6, clarifies that the board may replace board vacancies and not just the ones that result from resignation. Article 7, Section 1C, changed the word ensure with an I to ensure with an E, since the clause was not about insurance, but rather safeguarding. Article 7, Section 1D, changed the word directors to board of managers to clarify that the governance committee nominates and evaluates board members and officers as opposed to the library director. And Section 7, Article 7, Section 1I, reflected that the board has since added a financial advisory committee. May I have a motion to accept the recommended changes to the bylaws? Darren, and a second. Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thanks, Carol.
Thank you very much, Jared. Okay, next is our librarian's annual report. So Jane, the director, if you come up and give your report.
Hello, everyone. Hello to those on Zoom. So happy to see you tonight. Feels a little bit different than, well, it feels much different than last year because we were on Zoom only, but years before that, when we've been together, we had lots of delicious refreshments for you and a little mixing and mingling. And tonight we don't have refreshments and you're wearing masks, but slowly but surely we are getting back to normal, or whatever our new normal is going to be, because it's probably not going to be exactly the way it was before, when we feel like we're not in a pandemic anymore. Things have certainly changed. And we didn't expect last year at this time that we would still be in hybrid meetings and we would still be wearing masks, but here we are. And I am happy to say that some things have really come back in full swing at the library, and we're really pleased about that. Our doors have been fully open through the last fiscal year, and it's been a pleasure to see our residents coming back to use computers, to borrow materials, to come to programs, and have these virtual programs and hybrid programs at the same time, which is terrific that we've been able to utilize that technology in new ways, and it's helping people participate in the library. Our study rooms are open again. And our collaboratory and our Wonder Room are now open. They were among the last spaces to open because they're such hands-on and tight spaces. So we hope you'll spread the word that we are open and are open for our evening hours again. We're surprised how often we answer the phone and people say, "Oh, you're open?" Yes, we've been open. We were closed actually only a very short time given the full length of the pandemic. So please help us spread the word that we're eager for people to come back. And we feel that we're doing it in a way that ensures people's safety. We thank you for your patience to continue to wear the masks. We know it's not much fun. Our staff is tired of wearing masks too, but we serve so many children, and we really want this to be a space that feels safe for people to come with their families and with their children. So until our children have the opportunity to be vaccinated, I think we'll be wearing masks until at least then. And I suspect some people will continue to wear masks, and our staff may too. The era of judging people who wear masks, I hope is over, because certainly even we all talk about how we haven't had those nagging common colds over the past year because we've been masked up. So there's definitely some benefits to that. Last spring, the phones here were ringing off the hook, people asking when is the bookseller going to reopen. So we were really pleased that the bookseller opened on June 1st, and they have been just doing a terrific job. And I thank the volunteers, all of our volunteers, but our bookseller volunteers, our sorters. We actually started selling books online, and we were able to continue through the pandemic to do that. And thank the staff, the volunteers who were able to help us do online sales. And now we're back doing in-person sales, and I'm pointing out some of the people who've made that happen on our board, and we're really thrilled that we're continuing that. Speaking of volunteers, last year at our annual meeting, we acknowledged and welcomed Deborah Kwan as our poet laureate, and she has done just some amazing programs for us, and also has recommended books, but has brought us some beautiful programs. And I did want to acknowledge Debbie for her great work as our poet laureate. We're so grateful for her. I need to thank our library board because they have been supportive of the staff at every turn, even especially during the pandemic. They had to take up topics that aren't typical for library boards of managers or boards of any nonprofit organizations. And I really appreciated their support so much, and really can't imagine getting through this pandemic without having such a supportive board of managers to guide me and the staff. So I'm really grateful. I know Carol will introduce all of them when she comes back up in a moment. One of the things that wasn't pandemic related, but the pandemic was certainly an opportunity for us to test the waters, was the notion of eliminating overdue fines. Many libraries across the country are doing this, and we are now one of those fines-free libraries, which I think is just terrific for our community. People still do need to pay if they lose or damage an item. That doesn't happen very often, but we no longer are nickel and diming people if they're a few days late returning their materials. And I think that's just a real gift to our community, because it hurts people, and sometimes it hurts people who can't afford to be hurt like that. So that was a great boom for us that happened in January of this year. And I'm really thrilled. I do want to acknowledge the library employees. Really, I work with the most dedicated team at this library, and I think you know that already because I hear from so many people thanking me for the fact that our staff is empathetic and kind and creative and nimble and able to continue to turn on a dime when as things are evolving, and make the services that they provide as great as possible for all of you. I wish I could mention all of them by name. You may know that we did in fact lay off some of our part-time staff when we realized this pandemic was not going to be something that we resolved in just a couple of months. That was very painful for us to do. We have since invited many of those staff members back to the library, and some of them have returned. Some of them moved on to other opportunities. Not a surprise, right? We're hearing all the time about how the pandemic has changed work and livelihoods for people, and not everybody wants to go back to the same kinds of positions. So we have a fantastic team that loves to serve you, and in addition to bringing some people back who were laid off, we also have some newcomers on our team. I think that you may have seen them and seen some new faces. We're continuing to bring on some people so that we can extend our hours and finish filling up the vacancies on our team. I do want to mention a few folks tonight who are here and or have helped make tonight possible. Leah Farrell, who was with us last year, but she started her work at the library about a week after we closed for pandemic. And so now we're seeing her in person. She was with us virtually now for more than a year, but she is really the project manager and the mastermind for tonight's meeting. She's making it happen on Zoom. she found a fabulous speaker for us, and she has just been a terrific asset to the library. So Leah, thank you so much for all that you do for the library. And Julie Rio, our assistant director, is in the back of the room, and many of you already know Julie. She's a fantastic work partner, and I really can't imagine being a library director without all that she does for the library. She oversees our facilities department, and this year we in fact had a terrific hire of that department. Rich Heidgert, who was the retired fire chief, joined our team and is doing a fantastic job for us. And Julie oversees the work of that department and does a brilliant job. She also wrote the membership letter that you received, and I think she does a great job with that. She edits my work, which I also appreciate because she's really good with that red pen. So Julie, I thank you very much for all that you do for the library. And Carol Ann Slayton, who was our business manager for several years, is one of those people who did have a change of desire for her livelihood during the pandemic, and she took an early retirement from us. We were so fortunate that we had somebody on our team who in fact has a degree in accounting, who was really eager to apply for that position. And so we promoted Deb Ward to be our business manager. And some of you might have known Deb because before that, she was our volunteer and membership coordinator. So she's worn many hats here, and she's doing a beautiful job as our business manager now. She may be with us online, I'm not sure. Hi, Deb, if you're there. And Jessie Bernier is a recent addition to our staff, and she replaced the hole that Deb left when she was promoted. And Jessie is our new volunteer coordinator, as well as our reference associate. So you may see her on the reference desk, or if you're speaking with us about volunteer opportunities. Jessie's now doing a terrific job with that. I do want to acknowledge Chris Simnewski, because he designed that beautiful annual report that you might be looking at, and the membership letter. And he has not only a terrific reference librarian, but he has a great way of making us always look good. So we appreciate Chris so much. And I feel like I wish I could mention all of the other staff members, but gives you a flavor for the great team that I work with, and I'm thrilled about that. Finally, I want to thank you, our members. How many of you are members of the Wallingford Public Library Association? Probably most of you, right? So we'd like to let the community know that ours is a membership-based organization. You have a library card, and that's great, but become a member as well. And we appreciate you spreading the word about us being a membership organization. Willie Stahur is here, and she chairs our membership committee, and is always trying to think of new ways to get the word out that we accept annual members, and we do an annual membership campaign, because we get most of our money funding from the town. But it's those membership dollars, those dues that people pay every year, that really let us go above and beyond what the town pays. Let us try to experiment with new things, have a collection that's really fantastic, try some new programs and services that we couldn't do through the allocation through the town. So thank you to all of you for your membership support. And I always like to thank the mayor and council at these meetings too, because we are a well-supported library, thanks to the allocation that we receive from the mayor and council. And I encourage you, as you're out and about talking to our elected officials, to thank them for supporting the library in the way they do. We couldn't do all that we do without them. So that is my quick report. There is more in the annual report that you have, and I'm available after the meeting or anytime to hear your feedback and to answer your questions. And we love to keep in touch with our residents, so do let us hear from you. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, I just want to reiterate what Jane just said. Thank you to all of you that are members of the association. As she said, we're always trying to spread that word because so many people don't know that. I know it's on the newsletters and on the website, but unless they click that link or send in some money. So we do appreciate all of you. Okay, I'd like to recognize the board members that are here tonight. We have most of the board members here, and maybe the other ones are on Zoom. If I call your name, would you just stand briefly so that the other members can see you? Cliff Overstrom, Christy Doer, Art Elliott, Beth Brooks, who you met, Darren Chang, Jamie Hine, Jared Liu, you met, Bill Purcell, our new member, whose her first meeting is tonight. We welcome Umair Raza, Willie Stahura, Suzanne Wright, and Julie Robinson. Our other board members, and maybe they're on Zoom, so I would at least like to say their names, are Leah Russell, who just had a baby, so maybe you're there, Leah, with your baby. Maria Guadalupe Adelia and Fred Moynihan. And we also have a board fellow, Kale Rowan from Yale. So we welcome them to stay on the board as well. We do have one board member, as you heard Jared say, our terms are 3-year terms. And then we can be renominated for another 3-year terms if we so desire to continue on the board. And most, I would say the majority of us do want to continue on the board. But after 12 years, we have to say goodbye to a board member. So we have to say goodbye to one of our board members tonight. Julie Robinson has been a board member for 12 years. She was the past president before me. She has been a very active member of this association and board of directors for a long time. So Julie, I would like to recognize you and thank you. Would you come up here, please? Always hard to lose a good person. I also would like to acknowledge Beth Brooks for her outstanding work as our treasurer. She only has 1 more year on the board. And so she decided that maybe she should just take a back seat this year to our new treasurer, who's Christy Dorr. So Beth is going to kind of mentor Christy this year. Christy will be the treasurer, but I know Beth will be behind her every step of the way to help her through. So thank you very much, Beth. At this time, I'd like to take a motion to adjourn this business meeting. Do I have a motion? Willie, a second? Cliff? All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, again, thank you very, very much for coming this evening. And now I'd like to introduce Leah Farrell. Can you come up and introduce our speaker?
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. We have the wonderful Audrey Carlson. She is the founder of the Hartford Happiness Club, and she is here to talk to us a little bit about choosing happiness. Come on.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Leah, for inviting me. And I really enjoyed the tour today, and see you have an incredibly extensive library where you've got quilting and laser and things that I never dreamed would be. I go back to the days of card catalogs, right? And I also can imagine and trust the fact that the libraries today are serving in ways that we never imagined, particularly as we've navigated through COVID and how many families and kids and people got lost with a riveting book these last several months and perhaps might not have tapped into the resources right in their town and realized that the gifts are right here. And thank you for all you do. So yes, I have the Hartford Happiness Club, which was launched 8 years ago. And just the other day, someone asked me, how did you come to a happiness club? And I said, well, we were in a deli line, believe it or not. And I said, well, given the fact that I have a very short few minutes here with you and there's not a line yet, I'll give you the distilled version. And you're not going to get the distilled version. You're going to get a shortened version, but it's going to be how I navigated and how I came to a happiness club, because it's not what you would expect to hear tonight.
2002, May 22nd, 2002, our daughter Elizabeth, 24 at the time, was tragically murdered by her ex-boyfriend, who was our veterinarian in our home. It was the kind of story that you probably would expect to see or hear in a Lifetime movie. It's the kind of story that you think happens to somebody else. It happens. Our lives were changed forever, forever and ever. My husband and my other daughter, who's 1 year younger, surviving today, Leslie, we held each other one evening. The pain was beyond. It's unimaginable. I couldn't breathe. I was struggling. We were struggling with raw grief and shock. And for whatever reason, I had some clarity. We held each other, and Leslie said, "Mom, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to deal with this pain?" And I said, one thing we have to make very clear here and now, that if we choose to live with bitterness, hatred, and grief, and pain, and anger, then it will define us. And I don't want to be that person. Because if we do become that person, her ex-boyfriend, has killed us all. So we are going to start here and now, not blaming any one of us. Nobody knew this was going to happen. There were no signs. It wasn't what you would expect. It just, if I can't have, she broke up with him. If I can't have her, nobody can have her. He showed up at our house, pockets loaded with bullets, hid in our master bedroom bathroom, riddled her with bullets. Our other daughter got out of the house. He chased her. The police caught him. He's serving a 42-year sentence, and we are serving a lifetime sentence. That's where the journey began. Initially, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't stand. I couldn't focus. I couldn't really function. And I was practicing in periodontal dental hygiene. I was a clinical practitioner in a dental office for 32 years. And I had to learn how I could compartmentalize my emotions and function and give laser focus to the patients at hand, that I couldn't allow myself to go anywhere else. I also had to understand, after we held each other, that we didn't know how we were going to get through this. We knew we'd never be the same. We knew our lives would be never the same, changed forever. Yet, I also knew that somehow with our faith, we never blamed God. God doesn't kill people. People kill people. We had our faith. We had each other. We were going to be one of those families that was not going to disintegrate into a divorce and split up because of what happened. Rather, we held on to each other. We found strength with each other, and we had to trust the process. We had to trust the fact that if we got the therapy we needed, and we had the friends and the connections that we do have and to continue to have, that we would find our way. Do you get over it? Never. Never. And I don't like to use the word never, but you don't. It's the exception. You go through. Grief transforms us all. What did I do? I was in a running group, and I was out running with a friend one day who's a nurse. And I went back to her house for some coffee. And on her table were all these incredible books on holistic health and healing, integrative healing, and medicine. And it just really triggered me. And I said, "Where are all these books coming from? What are you doing?" She said, "I'm in a graduate program." I said, "A graduate program? Where?" "Well, it's called the Graduate Institute in Bethany, Connecticut. And the program is set up such that if you want to choose what you want to learn, you make up your own program, providing you meet your requirements, given internships and different types of programs that you can validate with what you've done." So I said, I need to do this. I have a lot of unanswered questions. So I called the school and I spoke to Bud Stone, and I learned immediately that Dr. Bernie Siegel was on staff there. Bernie Siegel, for those that know, was my speaker last month at my Happiness Club, who's just a very young 89, who celebrated his birthday last week. He's on faculty. He saved my mother's life when I was in my early 20s from lymphoma. He bridges the gap between mind and body healing. He started the Exceptional Cancer Program for patients. He continues to work. He continues to write books. He continues to be that distinguished individual that separates him from the Andrew Wiles and all the other doctors, in that if you wanted to reach out to Bernie Siegel and email him, he would contact you that day. How can I help you? So I wrote him a letter. And I said, I am considering taking this graduate program. And if and only if you'll be my mentor, my teacher, will you be there for me? And he said, absolutely, show up at my house with a legal pad. And on the pad, I want you to have 10 questions. So I'm going to briefly tell you this, and it's going to make sense how happiness and the choices I made will make a whole lot more sense to you. So I showed up at his house, and I have to be honest with you, my head was reeling, my feet weren't hitting the ground, because I couldn't believe I was going to be in this man's life, and he was going to be in my life. And he has continued to be that individual who's like my dad. So he said, so what's your first question? So I said, well, I'm having a really tough time here. Can people be born evil? And he said, absolutely not. It's in the absence of love that people do bad things. I said, I believe you, but I doubt you. Just a tiny bit, just a little bit, because one of your cohorts, Larry Dawsey, says there's something in this DNA stuff that people kind of like veer off. He says, it's a physiological thing. Go ask the prisoners yourself. You're going to be assigned to go to the prison system and ask them if they were loved. I said, you gotta be kidding. He said, no, what's your next question? Right? So I said, okay, well, I have a lot of my patients in Hartford, where I worked for 32 years, that are deeply rooted in their faith, and they're Portuguese. And one Maria after another would come in and they'd say, if you don't forgive Jonathan for killing your daughter, you're going to go to hell. I said, for once I'm speechless. I can't speak. And I said, that can't be possible, because I'm living that hell right now. And she said, you have to forgive him. I said, I can't use that word. So I tell this to Bernie, and he said, you need to find another word, but you need to understand it. It's not about him, it's about you. Your next assignment will be to go to the pastoral counseling classes that are going to be taught at Mount Sinai in Hartford with Dr. Reverend Henderson. Okay. What's your next question? I said, I need to know your mantras. What words do you live by? How do you live? How are you always so happy? How do you find peace in this world? He said, well, I follow the words of my mother. And she said, you have to do what makes you happy. What does that look like? What does that look like? I said, well, he said, a lot of what you do, we all do, we take care of everybody else to make them happy. What do you do for yourself? What do you do to carve out no less than 10% of your day for you? What would that look like? Think about it. What do you do just for you, 10% of the day, that doesn't include anybody else? The next thing he said was that basically you have to find another way to get through meditation. Because I asked him, I said, do you meditate? He says, Audrey, I don't sit and do this. He said, I have to move. I'm a mover. I move. His definition, which has become mine, his definition of meditation is to do whatever it might be where you get lost in time. What is that? Is it music? Is it a book? that is a page turner where it's riveting, where you get lost in time? Is it where you unplug perhaps and go for that walk? Is it maybe during COVID when a lot of people were buying flour and yeast off the shelves and there was nothing left and everybody was kneading dough, getting into the rhythm of whatever it might be? What is it that you do that you get lost in time and that's where you need to be? And these are the things that he does. He then took me into a back room, which was like a little office of his. Now, let me tell you, it was a small room, this just about this big, and up and down all the shelves were all of his books, and all of these books were crammed in like sardines. So if you were to take one book out, 10 would fall. And he takes a ladder from Lowe's and he climbs up to the top and he says, I have a book for you. He says, these are the words I live by. You need to pay attention very carefully. It was a book written by Thornton Wilder, The Bridges of San Luis. And at the very end of this book, there are some very profound, powerful words that he lives by, and I do as well. I'm going to paraphrase. The secret to being eternal is love. There is a bridge that exists between the land of the living and the land of the dead, and that bridge is love. For as long as we love, they live on. Viktor Frankl wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning. And if you haven't read it, do. And he was a survivor from the Holocaust. What is my meaning? What is my purpose? I need you to ask yourself that question. What is your meaning? What is your purpose? Because we are constantly being redirected and we're reinventing ourselves, those that can do that, especially now. And he told me to read these books and he told me to pay attention to the words. And then he took a big basket with a handle like I was Little Red Riding Hood, and he put Dan Millman in there, Solzhenitsyn, and he kept packing all these books in there for me to read. And he said, extract whatever it is you need. Then report to me at the end of the week with a book report. There were 15 books. So I said, is this a joke? He said, yeah, it's a joke. Just do whatever you want with the books. This program is for you. I'm going to tell you what happened next, because it's a miracle. And I need you to tap in to understand that every day there are miracles. And that there are gifts right in front of your nose every day. For real. Here's what happened. He lives in Woodbridge and I live in Newington. I had to go down the Merritt Parkway. It was a Friday afternoon and it was sunny and beautiful and bright. And I was on cloud 9 because I had just spent the whole morning with Bernie Siegel. And we're committed to each other and we hit it off and it was just incredible. I'm driving with the radio off because I get contemplative. I start to think and my head is swirling with all of what he has just filled me with. So this is what happened. Sunny, beautiful day, blue sky, and the words in my head were still there. There is the bridge of love, the land of the living and the land of the dead. And guess what happened? As I'm driving northbound on the Merritt Parkway, I had to pull over because in the sky, someone magically somehow created that scenario. There were two giant cumulus clouds miles apart from each other. And just as if someone put their hand like in sand, drawing 5 lines, like the treble clef of music, they drew 5 lines connecting these two giant cumulus clouds. It was the land of the living and the land of the dead. And it was for me to see that it was validated. His words became real. Trust the process. And that's what I want you to do. Trust your intuition, trust your process. Look around you at what is out there because it will fill your heart and it will take you to another place and your life will become very rich and very full. Then I have to tell you what else happened because I've written about this and it's incredible. I get home. Bruce is at work, my husband. Nobody's home except my 2 standard poodles. They're hanging out in the window seat waiting for me. But my phone is ringing, beeping. Someone had just left a message. It's going beep, 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 beep. Push the button. Audrey Carlson, this is Susie Henniker. I'm calling you from the Brooklyn prison in Brooklyn, Connecticut. I got your name from the club nobody wants to belong to, the survivors of homicide. There's a program called Voices where we bring in individuals, survivors, to come and speak to our prisoners and tell them their story. Our speaker for tomorrow morning has canceled. Are you available? Holy cow. Are you kidding me? I had just left Bernie Siegel's house, and here I got, everything was written in the sky to validate our conversation, to trust the book, trust the words, never question it. And I got this invite to speak at a prison system. I immediately called her back. And of course, without hesitation, I said, yes, I'll be there. My head is swirling. My feet are still not hitting the ground. And I'm saying to myself, what the heck is going on here? So I called him, Bernie, seriously, did you call the prison and tell them to call me? He said, what prison? What are you talking about? I said, no, for real. I told him and repeated everything I just told you. And he said, I didn't tell you when I was a little kid, I had a near-death experience. I choked on a toy, died, went to heaven, met the chairman of the board, and he said, I met God. And he calls him the chairman of the board. And he says, we're deeply connected. And when you left, I asked God to help you find your way and to answer all your questions. He says, an hour, that's pretty good. Right? So I had just gotten an assignment from the Graduates Institute to study a Buddhist prayer called the Beginner's Mind. And to simplify it, I can't remember it all because it's been a while, but basically, no judgment, no expectations, and love. That was my new mantra for the evening. I said it all night long because I was scared to death to go into this prison and trying not to imagine looking at someone that would potentially look like the guy who killed my daughter, even though he's not at that prison. In your head, it plays tricks on you and you get full of fear. Well, no judgment, no expectations, and only love. Again and again and again. So I get there in a room, 50 men in orange jumpsuits come out, prison guards, all of the individuals that are coordinating the program come out and they sit. And I said to these guys, you know, I have to be honest with you, I didn't know I was coming until yesterday. I don't know if I'm coming back. I don't know if you want me to come back. I don't know even what's going to happen today because I've never done anything like this. However, I'm on an assignment. And I told them what I was doing and why. And I said, I have a lot of questions, but I'm also smart enough to know that perhaps not all of you know the truth, how to tell the truth, let alone all the other questions I have for you. So to briefly put this into a little nutshell, I asked them how many of these 50 prisoners had children. Of the 50, 25 hands go up. How many of you love your children? All 25 hands go up. How many of your children love you back? Maybe 10, maybe 6.
Oh.
So I said, how many of you are taking advantage of the rehabilitation programs that you have here? And how many of you believe, truly believe, that you can break the cycle of violence in your homes, your neighborhoods, your churches, your whatever? And guess how many hands went up? 2. One of which was a young kid who began to cry because I told him a very quick story that I'll share with you. I told him that when our daughter was riddled with bullets in our bed, in our master bedroom bathroom, one of our standard poodles wouldn't leave her and laid on top of her and wouldn't let her die alone. So when the police came, they had to peel the dog off of my daughter's body. Young kid in the front seat, he's maybe 22, bawling. So I said, tell me what's going on. He says, well, we were told not to speak and not to really say anything. I said, I'm giving you permission as long as it's okay. It turned out that this one kid, who I believe was going to be the only kid that was going to break the cycle of violence, the only kid that was going to make it. He was not a repeat offender. This was a level, 3 prison. His father was incarcerated and killed in prison. His younger brother's in prison for dealing drugs and robbing stores. He was the sole survivor in the family, and his mother made him promise that he would not follow their steps. So for as long as he could, he stayed true to be. He was an honor student. He did well, but he was alone. He was lonely. He didn't feel like he had anybody to talk to. And one day there was his dog that ended up at the corner of his street with no collar, this little like Sheltie. And the dog became his best friend and stayed with him and gave him what he was missing in his life, everything. One day the dog wasn't walking well and he got concerned, and he had saved up some money and took the dog to the vet, and the dog had cancer. And it was going to cost a lot of money to save this dog. And you can only imagine what happened next. He ended up dealing drugs on the corner to save the dog, got caught, ended up in prison. And he said, he was the brother I never had. He was the only love I knew other than a mother who was working 3 jobs to keep us afloat. And he said, I was going to do anything at all to keep that dog alive. And he says, and I'll be out and I will make it. And you want to know what? That's what warmed my heart, and reaching one person mattered. Then I asked these prisoners, were you loved? And they said they didn't know how to answer the question. By that time, my time was up. I had to leave. And they invited me back with wonderful letters and notes that they sent to my house. And I came back, they wanted me to talk more about this love stuff. Well, what I learned was that a lot of them didn't know love. And I said to them, at the end of the day, at the very end of your days, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as that father who abandoned their kid, abandoned the family, shamed the family, was a criminal, and couldn't get it right? Couldn't understand forgiveness? How do you want to be remembered? At the end of the day, the only thing that matters, the only thing that lives on that matters is love. And you have a chance now to make a small change so that you can be remembered in a loving way. That was the next thing I did. And then I did my pastoral counseling with Reverend Henderson, and I found a new word, which was more of a Buddhist type of understanding, letting go. What did I do? Because I was still struggling with bitterness, hatred, and anger. And I knew I couldn't be defined by that. I knew I didn't want to be that person, even though I didn't behave in that way. It was inside, and it was unsettling for me. I also knew that I wouldn't survive. Did I know happiness at that point? Heck no. I took a course with a Dr. Jean Folks, who the course was Death and Dying. And the question she asked the class, which was powerful. And we all know the answer because we're all full of wisdom at this point. But these were young undergrads. The question was, if you had to choose between happiness and peace, what would you choose? Happiness. I want happiness. Well, she said, a lot of my clientele, a lot of my patient base are those individuals coming out of their own holocausts, their own genocides. Their villages have been burned down to the ground. They've crawled out from the bottom of dead bodies, and they are their own Viktor Frankls. And for them, all they can hope for is a sliver of happiness, of peace. Peace paves the way to happiness. How do we find it? You start out with forgiveness, yourself. And for me, I couldn't use that word because I grew up with a brother that used to pull my ponytail and be mean to me. And I could say, I forgive you, but anything grander than this, I couldn't use that particular word, although I understood it and I was going to do this. Rather, I chose the word letting go. So what I want to share with you is what I had to do, which helped me find peace and happiness. And I'm going to give you all the tips and all the tools that I learned along the way that will help you too. The first thing was I had to learn how to breathe again. I was so full of anxiety that I could hardly get air in my lungs. And I was living in fear that I would never hear my husband's voice again or my daughter's voice again. And I was anxious. So I sought out a therapist who basically taught me how to use what we innately all have, is we're blessed with the gift of breath. I learned how to breathe into the count of 6, what I need, and to breathe out what I need to get rid of to the count of 6. Breathe in what you need. I need calm. I need strength. I need resilience. And you breathe out what you need to get rid of, whatever that might be. You're angry, you're whatever, wherever you might be. And you learn to do this in all kinds of situations where you could be racing, you're stuck at a red light, you're anxious about something, and you find that you're not breathing properly, or you're fuzzy headed. I learned how to do this and attach an emotion. So I want to just tell you, there was a very incredible, famous rabbi that came into my life, Rabbi Henry Okalika. He's passed. He was in his 102. He came into my life. I met him at the Red Cross at a speaking engagement for mothers who lost children to suicide or to murder or to drug. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Other mothers. He came and spoke the evening before Thanksgiving. This man was incredible. His life was Viktor Frankl's. He crawled out from piles of dead bodies in Germany in the war. He got to America and he said, God, if I'm alive, what do you want from me? And he became a civil servant. He worked with the VA hospital. He helped people for years and years and years how to find their way and find peace and happiness. He spoke, and he basically was the most incredible man I've ever met. And he held my hands, and he had these giant baseball glove hands, and he held my hands, and he said, we really never die. We have to learn the language. And what he did is he taught me what to do, and I'm going to teach you this. It's easy peasy. There's that place we all know where we transition from a deep sleep to that place we have consciousness, or we're waking up. So you haven't opened your eyes, you have not swallowed, you have not wiggled your toes, you've done nothing except have the awareness you're awake. At that moment that you're awake, you realize, obviously, you're alive. At that moment, whatever you believe in, say thank you. Whatever it is you believe in, show gratitude. I'm alive. If I'm alive, how am I going to live my life? What is happening today, right? Still haven't moved, still haven't swallowed. Now, what you're going to do is that breathing thing I taught you. You're going to breathe into the count of 6, what you need, and you're going to breathe out what you need to get rid of. And then you're going to forecast your day. You do this all in less than a minute. All right? You're going to forecast your day. What do you need to get through your day? Do you need strength? Do you need resilience? Do you need calm? Do you need to be patient? Breathe it in. And your day, much like the power of intention that we've all read about and we all understand, your day will play out just as I explained. It's magical, it's wonderful, and it works. So this man gave me more tools in my toolkit. I started out learning how to breathe, and I started to learn how to attach emotions to what I needed. Now, gratitude. I had to really look at my life very differently. I've been blessed, thank goodness, with an innate gift of being positive, and I am resilient. That's how I'm born. I'm very grateful. I don't take it for granted because it's kept me alive. Okay. I had no choice. I had to survive and I had to find my way. I wasn't going to live in that place where I was in darkness and pain all the time. I had to look at what I have. What do I have? I still have a husband and a daughter who could have all been killed. And then I look at my friend Bill Pettit, whose whole family was murdered. Everything he ever loved and touched was taken from him. I have friends that I met through the survivors of homicide who have family members that are still missing, cold cases. I have people, I know a speaker, a friend of mine, Demario, that came out of Ghana, who was kidnapped as a boy soldier and forced to do the unthinkable. How dare I think my life is horrible? How dare I? There are so many people out there that have so much worse and have less than I do. I had to look at what I have. And the minute you focus on what you do have and what you can do, not what you can't do, it paves the way for happiness. It really does. I don't need anyone to take care of me. I can take care of myself. I can walk. I can see. And whenever I start complaining about when I have too much on my plate and I'm like complaining that it's like enough already. I say, but you can still do this. For as long as I can still do whatever it is, I'm not going to complain. I do, but then I say, you have nothing to complain about because you can do this. Think about it. All the things, look how far we've come through these last 18 months or so. How many of you realize how resilient you are? How many of you learned so much more about yourselves that you didn't even know about? How many of you started to look at the simplistic, simple life that we detoxed our houses, we cleaned out things, we got rid of things, we realized I only need one pair of sneakers because guess what? That's the next thing. Exercise. I want you to think about what makes you happy. You want happy hormones, you want oxytocin, you want the endorphins, you want to lift physiologically your body into a place where you can really be happy and not need to take anything other than going for a walk to get to where you need to be. So what did I do? I found a pot of people, 2 people in my neighborhood, and we made a commitment to each other. I said, we need to be accountability buddies. You need to find an accountability buddy so that not only are you held accountable, but you need each other. Remember Barbara Streisand's words? People who meet people are the luckiest people in the world. We need each other. I walked every single day 5 miles with my big poodle and my friend, and I wore out those sneakers, and it was a pleasure to get a new pair. So I encourage you to tap into the most elementary things that make you happy, find peace, and connect you with people. And how many people here, think about it, during this last period of several months, called people that you haven't spoken to in a long time because even though we physically couldn't connect with each other and hug each other, we could talk to each other. And we all learned how to navigate through Zoom and through all these other technical gifts that were right in front of our nose. My goodness, I didn't know how to do any of this. I'm more clinically oriented. I didn't know how to do any of this. I learned. I learned because I wanted to stay connected, right? We are what we eat. And for me, I found that I needed to eat a lot cleaner and to eat things that were going to be anti-inflammatory because we didn't want to get sick. It was not a vaccine initially. I chose anti-inflammatory foods. I made sure I was walking. I made sure I drank enough water so that your pee is clear. You're supposed to take your body weight, divide it in half, aim for that in water. Your bladder adjusts, you're fine. So these, there's a lot of just elementary things that you need to do. So if you can walk, go for a walk. Now I want to give you a metaphor here. I said to Bernie, So when he walks twice a day. So when you walk, he says you have to unplug. You go for a walk. All the answers we seek come from within. And when you struggle to find those answers, you go for a walk. Because they're in nature. We're connected to all the seasons. And then he took me for a walk in his neighborhood, and it was a brook. We all have a brook near us. It was summer. And so the brook had rocks. And those rocks represented our obstacles that we all have in our life. And the wind and the rain and the shifting of just nature, sometimes those rocks move just a little bit, but the obstacles are there, but they move, they change. The water always finds its way around those rocks. Then the fall comes and the winter comes and it freezes. Sometimes we too, we get stuck, we get frozen in time, just like the winter. What we have to do is trust the process. The sun's going to come out. I promise you, the sun will come out, maybe not tomorrow, correct? But the sun will come out and it will melt. The water will again find its way. And that's what we have to do. We have to understand, to trust the process. Who is going to know you better than you? Nobody. Nobody's going to know you better than you. Take care of yourself. Love yourself. Bernie says, get a picture of yourself when you were a little baby. And look at that baby and see that baby's still in there. Tap into the kid in you. How many of us realize that one of the studies that they did this past number of months was really fun? I'm going to tell you what it was. Dr. Marty Seligman, who's the founder of positive psychology, of which I got certified in after I did my studies with Bernie, and I needed my culmination project, thus the Happiness Club, but I'll divert just like the rocks, So Marty Seligman did a study where people were really having a rough time getting through COVID, depression, anxiety. And he did a study realizing the role of pets in our lives. So those people that got pets or whatever they might have done to start having fun, their whole physique, their whole physiology shifted and changed, and they became happier. And fun became the #1 key ingredient to getting through these tough times. Fun, having fun. You need to have fun. If you have grandchildren or anybody, if you don't have grandchildren or anybody young around, go find something that could make you laugh and have fun. It's key. It's really key. I mean, a lot of you have heard of laughter yoga, where they just laugh. They just start laughing, and it's contagious because it's the one contagion we all need in this world. We need laughter and we need happiness. Imagine if happiness was the contagion. Wouldn't that be incredible? So Bernie Siegel did something, and how am I doing? I'm not even paying attention. I get lost. I brought all these notes. I didn't even look. Are we good? Am I good? Okay. So I want to tell you something that's really, I'm very humbled to tell you that I got published in Bernie Siegel's one of his latest books called Love, Animals, and Miracles. He did Love, Medicine and Miracles. He did Peace, Love, and Healing. He did The Art of Healing. He did 365 Prescriptions for the Soul, Daily Living. He's written numerous books. Anybody that knows him knows that he had a menagerie at his house, and he had all kinds of animals. Everything from kind that slithers to the kinds that fly to the furry, the furry ones, all of them. He loved them all. Well, he was putting together a book which was going to be a collaborative collection of stories that people were going to write in 1,000 words or less, not one word more. That's hard to do. And a true story of healing, or the role that perhaps that pet played in your life. Statistically, you need to know that those who have pets do indeed statistically live longer than those that don't. We're not talking stuffed animals, they have to be real. Now, even if you don't walk the pet, just by caring for the pet and having a responsibility, having meaning and purpose in your life is going to keep you alive. And obviously, if it's perhaps a dog, and if that's the case, then they have many lessons to teach you. But first, I want to tell you the story. He reached out to me and he said, I know you got your 2 poodles because we went on CBS News with the poodles and we told the story. We were going on about how I was helping him promote his book. So I said, I wrote a story in this book and it's very much like The Bridge of Love. And do you want to hear the story really briefly? Yes? Okay. The story very briefly. My husband was outgendered in our family. He was surrounded by all women and females with 2 paws, 4 paws, waggly tails, and he never felt like he had a vote in the family for anything that mattered. And he said, you know, if I had a male dog with 4 paws, I might count. I said, well, maybe not. So one day, we heard this for years because we had 2 standard poodles. There were 2 females, 2 daughters, me and him. Well, 3 weeks before Elizabeth was killed, she went to Ann Fisher's house. Ann Fisher, we lovingly regard as Dr. Poolittle. She's our breeder and she's in Meriden. She's pretty famous. And people come from all over the world to get her dogs because they're pet therapy dogs that come totally trained. They're amazing. Fine. So she goes to Ann Fisher's house. Why? Because Charlie Girl needed to be groomed and fussied up. So she goes to the house and Ann Fisher just so happens to have had a litter of puppies. So she runs upstairs and she picks up all the puppies to see which of the puppies have boy parts, because they're different, but you knew that. So she holds the one and only male and she's hugging him and she says, I've saved up some money. I have most of the money for you. Let me give you a deposit. I want this for daddy. He's been wanting a boy dog for always. And Ann Fisher said, I'm really sorry. He's spoken for. My friend Bonnie's going to train him to be a pet therapy dog. Sorry. Moot point, nothing to be said. Nothing was ever said. 3 weeks later, our lives changed forever. 6 to 8 months later, I say to my husband, who's an engineer, he sees black and white. He doesn't see that there's a gray, invisible, intangible world called the spirit world. And I say to Bruce, invite Elizabeth into a dream. Well, how do I do that? You just talk to her. Just invite her in. You think? I said, yes, just like this. Elizabeth, come to daddy in a dream. 3 o'clock is usually the hour that we all know for those that tap into that world. And metaphorically speaking, hit him over the head with a frying pan so he knows the dream is real. So he listens. 4 or 5 months later, 3 a.m., the hour, he wakes up and he's rattled. He is totally unsettled. He is in a place I never recognized in my husband. He said, I can't believe what just happened. I had a dream. Elizabeth came to me in the backyard where he had just bulldozed the backyard and rebuilt it. That was his way of healing. He had to rip it apart and rebuild it. She came to him in the backyard with a little black puppy poodle, a boy. And she said, Daddy, I have a boy dog for you. And your life is going to change. And when it changes, you're going to be gifted this male dog. And it's a gift from me to you because I love you. They held each other. They exchanged loving words. He woke up and couldn't go back to sleep. And he said, well, what do I do with this? I said, trust the process. You've heard me say this a number of times, but you need to trust the process. Things happen, pay attention to it. Well, 6 months later, my mother's health was failing. We flew down to Florida. We boarded our 2 dogs, along with everybody else probably in the area, because it was the week of March 15th, and it was vacation week, and she had oodles of poodles running around our house. Woof, woof, woof. And we fly back. We go to Ann Fisher's house to pick up our 2. There had been a dozen standard poodles running around. And craziness, because somebody comes into the house, pet me, play with me. Well, so Aunt Fisher, like that. And all of the dogs sat and didn't move. Do you remember the scene from The Sound of Music where he blew, the captain blew the whistle and all the kids stood in attention and didn't move? That's what the dogs did. All the dogs except one. One dog wouldn't listen. And he ran down this long hallway and he jumped in my husband's lap and he began to cry from his gut. He was crying. Now Bruce, who's not demonstrative, who grew up in a very stoic home, is bawling. The dog's paws are on his shoulders. He's crying, the dog is crying, and Aunt Fisher's saying, I should have told you. I should have told you. I never told you. It's validated. I will never question it ever. What are you talking about? I never told you. 3 weeks before Elizabeth was killed, she picked out a puppy. The puppy went to my friend Bonnie. He became a pet therapy dog. He can sniff out cancer. The dog is amazing. Bonnie went through a divorce. She gave me the dog to put on poodle rescue yesterday. The dog that Elizabeth picked out 3 weeks before she was murdered. The same dog that came to my husband in the dream was in his lap. Take me home. Take me home. Now, that's the story I wrote. And it really, it's the kind of story that keeps validating in what it is we can't see and what we can't touch, that intangible spirit world. It's real. Pay attention to it. Look at the gifts right in front of you. Now, I want to share with you some really important things for some of us who have pets or who have lost pets. And I'm going to explain this. It's really important. I don't know life without dogs or any other kind of pet. And I started to pay more attention to the lessons they're teaching us. The first is obvious. It's unconditional love. But the rest of them, I'm going to explain to you a little deeper. They teach us how to tap into the kid in you. They want to play. We forget how to play. They remind us how to play. They remind us how to be present. Meaning, do they know tomorrow? Do they think or worry about tomorrow? Of course not. They even let 10 minutes ago go. They only know now. They're teaching us to do the same. When you get up in the morning, you hop out of bed and do whatever. You know what they do when they wake up from a deep sleep? They do a downward facing dog. How many of you get up and stretch out and do a downward facing dog in the morning? Right? They do downward facing dog and they're teaching us how to do the same. Now, they also teach us how to wag our tails no matter what. Charlie girl lost her sight, our dog. I struggled more than she did. I was a mess. I got a book on how to deal with blind dogs. I didn't know how we were going to get through this and navigate life together because our dogs, we have on the side of our house a doggy door, a flippy door, and it goes out into a long dog run so they can go outside and play whenever. How is she going to find her way? How is she going to find anything? And what I realized was that once she started to tap into all the other senses that we all have, our sense of smell and hearing, and her just general sense of what's around her, she did very well. And she wagged her tail and tried to teach me to do the same. Okay. Now, here's the powerful one. I know, and you do too, many people who have lost their pets. And many of them say, I will never, ever get another dog or another cat again. I can't bear the pain. And I say, I understand. I understand your grief and I understand where you're coming from. But there's a big however here. The however is that, did you ever wonder, I did, when I was a little kid, I used to wonder, and I asked, and I said to God, hey, here's the deal. You really screwed up. We live longer than our pets. I mean, alligators and snakes and, other such animals, the animals you really can't hug and snuggle next to, they live forever. And yet our doggies and our kitties, they don't live long. Why? Why do you take them so early? What's the story here? And it came to me that they have short lives to teach us how to go through grief. They have short lives to teach us that we have to face death. They're preparing us for the big stuff. Again and again and again and again. We've lost many pets, and they've taught me how to let them go. And they've taught me that life has little meaning without love. Life has little meaning without love. To open your hearts again and again, whether it's to the two-legged variety or the four-legged variety, but to do that, to open your heart again and again. Be that kid in you, play. Be aware of, we don't know tomorrow. Heck, I don't know 10 minutes from now, let alone what happened 10 minutes ago. All we have is now, and all we have is each other. And the key is to connect with people and to find that meaning and purpose in your life, because that's really what's going to make you happy. So, all right, let's see what else I got here. Humor. I thought about humor a lot because Joyce Saltman is a speaker of mine who will be my speaker November 11th in my Happiness Club, which is at Tumblebrook Country Club in Bloomfield. She's very funny. And down deep, if you think about it, humor is a survival skill. We all need humor, we all need to laugh, and we all need to find ways to be happy and to find joy in our lives. And I don't know where you can find your humor, whether it's watching funny movies or finding that one friend who's the life of the party, but find that humor in yourself, because that's what's going to keep you going for sure. And volunteer. When you give of yourself and expect nothing back, your life becomes very full. It has more meaning, more purpose, and it takes you to a place of more than happiness. It's very fulfilling. And I was volunteering at the hospital for special care. I played piano my whole life. I played, and I loved it largely because they tucked me in the corner. Nobody could see me, which was great. And I could play whatever I wanted, and it shifted the whole energy. Music. You don't have to go home to an empty house. Put a CD on, put your Pandora on, put the radio on, listen to something that is going to get you through the day, that will change and shift wherever you might be or where you want to be. Because it's what kept me alive. Well, not so much during COVID, but it's what I do where I get lost in time. There's a term called neuroplasticity where you rewire your brain, and a lot of people have learned, see on social media, to do something for 30 minutes. Do this for 30 minutes, you're going to change your life. Drink 8 glasses of water every day, you're going to see the difference. Do this, do this, do that. Well, I think you needed to do it more than 30 days, right? What you need to do is to make changes for life. And when you start to do something you've never done before, pick up an instrument, learn something you've never done before, challenge yourself. When you can learn something you've never done before, guess what you're doing? You're rewiring your brain, as long as you do it every day. Now, just say you want to start walking, but you say, I can't do it. 5 miles, 10 minutes. The brain doesn't know the difference if you go for 10 minutes, 10 hours. Brain gets the same message, but do something for you every single day to rewire your brain and to take you to that place where you will be happy. The next thing was challenge yourself. Now, Bernie Siegel gave me an assignment, and it was a most unusual assignment at the time, yet it was something that I've been doing my whole life, but I didn't realize I was doing it at all. But this time it was defined as an assignment. What was that? He asked me, he said, I want you to go out into society, wherever you might be, and I want you to seek out that one person who nobody else will sit next to. That one person that is just a little different in whatever way that might be. Doesn't matter. They just are alone. And I want you to sit next to that person, and I want you to introduce yourself to that person, and I want you to find out what their wounds are by sharing your own. Yeah. And I said, yeah, just like that. He says, yeah. You're going to come back next week and you're going to tell me what happened. So I did. I found a woman that nobody else would sit next to. And I sat next to her and I introduced myself. I said, I'm Audrey. What's your name? Bonnie. This was 15 years ago. And I said, I've never seen you here before. I went to a meeting. It was a meeting that Bernie Siegel was having for when he used to be at the Wisdom of the Ages. And it was a wonderful meeting where people connected. It was really nice. And nobody was sitting next to her. So I did. I had an assignment. I said, I've never seen you here before. She said, well, I've never been here before. No, I haven't been here in many months. I said, aha, where have you been? She said, at the Institute of Living. I said, oh, I'm glad you're out. I'm glad you're here. What was going on? And she said, well, I tried to take my life for the 12th time. 12 times. That's incredible. I said, my goodness, you're alive. You know, did you ever ask yourself that if you really wanted to be dead, you'd be dead? But you're not. So if you're not dead, you're living. So if you're living, how are you going to live your life? What do we do? How are you going to do this? I said, you're here. And all these people are here to help you and to help you find your way. And I'm not going anywhere. And give me your number and let me know what you're up to. I immediately connected with her. And she said to me, nobody ever really, after 12 times trying to commit suicide, nobody ever asked her these questions. If you're, if you really wanted to be dead, you wouldn't be here. Well, here's what I did. I started to go into the high schools to talk to kids, high school kids, how to recognize healthy and unhealthy relationships. And I gave them the same assignment. I said to these kids, there were, 500 kids. And I said, I want a show of hands. How many of you are up for an assignment? What they didn't know is that I put a handful of $20 bills in my pocket to give it to them if they follow through. I wanted to see if they were really going to do this. Interestingly enough, it was co-ed. Only the boys took on the challenge. I know, juniors in high school. So I gave them the same assignment I had. I said, you don't need to be a graduate student. You could be 4 years old and take on the same challenge. Sit next to somebody, find out what their wounds are, share your own. Joey accepted. He goes to school, and the following week, he goes to the library in the school, in the media center, and there's a kid he's never seen before. And he said to this kid, I have never seen you here before. He said, well, my parents threw me out of the house. I had to quit school. They told me I was a loser and I'd never amount to anything. And I didn't think I was worthy of coming back to school. And he said, you're kidding. He said, that's terrible. He said, I got to tell you, my parents have told me some things that haven't made me very happy either. They told me that I could do a lot better. They compare me to the kid next door and my grades could be a lot better. And I look like a jerk and I don't dress well. And he says, that's really awful, but you're here. He says, and I'm here for you too. Well, the next kid had a similar story, except he saved a kid from committing suicide because the kid opened up and he said his girlfriend broke up with him and that he was a loser and he was rejected. And the next student that had the assignment saved his life. seek out that one person. Now, if it's uncomfortable for you to do, smile at someone. Kindness. Dr. David Freiberg, who's a cohort and friend of mine out of Yale, he has a program called Envision Kindness. And he's done all these studies where these videos are put in the hospitals and dental offices and such, where they're just visuals of people demonstrating acts of kindness and the rippling effect. We all have seen it. It works. It's real. Do something that you've never done before. Reach out to somebody that might just be alone. We don't know if they're lonely, but they're alone, but you don't know. And I challenge you to do that same thing. All right. How we doing? It's an hour. We're okay? Yes. Consider replacing the word but with and. It has a negative connotation. So I started using and instead of but, and it's more positive. And you know what? The more positive words you use, like self-talk, we all have, we are our worst critics. And what can we do to stay positive and choose happiness are all the things that I tried to explain to you, how to basically start out with trusting in your intuition, knowing that no one's going to know you better than you, and to take good care of yourself, reach out, and there's resources out there for everyone. Give yourself permission to be human. We all screw up. It's okay. We are all perfectly imperfect. That's Bernie Siegel's quote. We are all perfectly imperfect. Be a lifelong learner. This is the best place. Pick up a book you normally wouldn't and see where it takes you. I started to do crossword puzzles. My mother was an avid crossword puzzle and Jeopardy fan. And I started doing crossword puzzles and they were hard. And every day they get harder, but you already know that. You guys are seasoned and I'm just learning. And to do what makes you happy. Again, carve out no less than 10% of the day to do whatever it is where you can wag your own tail, be happy, and ask yourself, like now, we talked about this a little earlier, what is the best part of your day? I ask everybody that every day. What is the best part of your day? And you look at the gratitude, and it paves the way to happiness. And last of all, I was hugging Bernie. Are you comfortable hugging? Is anybody comfortable hugging? Okay, come. So I was thanking Bernie and I said, you can't imagine how much I love you. And I want to thank your family for sharing you with the world and me. So I went to hug him and he said, that's very nice, but you could do better. Right? I said, I thought it was a good hug. He said, no. He says, do you want the proper, appropriate, best hug in the world that has like, bam, love? I said, yeah. He said, it's heart to heart. So you say to someone, may I give you a hug of love and healing? And they say yes, hopefully. And then you hug them. You pause and you tell them, I just put love in your heart. And I can't begin to tell you the effect it has on people and me, because we're sharing love and they're getting perhaps the only hug they've had in a long time. So I'm going to ask you all to go home and hug, I don't care who, what. Heart to heart, it's a hug of love and healing. And I give that all to you. Thank you.